There's a nonprofit in Halifax, Nova Scotia called reachAbility. They hosted Nova Scotia's National Accessibility Week 2020. They also partnered with Youth Art Connection, or YAC, to hire 4 young artists that would cover some of the events that they would be hosting throughout the week. Before we go any further, we should go back to the reachAbility office and learn a little bit more about what NAAW is. My first interview of the day was somebody with a self-adorned title that made her seem like a good place to start.
My name's Jessica Ward. Yeah, I'm kind of like the National Accessibility Week pro. National Accessibility Week has actually been around for probably 36 years, but it was only when the ACA came out in 2018, leading into 2019, that the federal government decided to put a little bit of money towards promoting National Accessibility Week. So they put a call out to all the different provinces. They were looking for provincial hosts for National Accessibility Week. So we applied to the federal government to be provincial hosts, and we won the bid to have it for a minimum of 4 years. So we're going into year 3 now, but so year 2 is the one we're talking about.
So this is NAAW?
This is NAAW.
No problem. Let's do it. My name is Tova Sherman. I'm the CEO of reachAbility, the founder of the Blue Nose Ability Arts and Film Festival, and the lead on the National Accessibility Week. The reason reachAbility really steps up when others maybe are saying maybe not yet is one of the things that we were built on was on the idea of being very flexible, very shiftable. I'm sure there's much better words, but what I'm trying to say is when COVID happened, the first thing we did was say, how are we going to blaze a trail and keep going? Doesn't mean the same way. I don't believe we're ever going back to that normal. It's going to all be a new normal. And the number one thing I said to my team is, let's look at this for the long haul, because all psychologists will tell you, if you expect it to be longer than it is, and then it's not as bad, you actually feel better. And as someone who lives on the ADHD spectrum, as well as lives with mental illness, it's very important for me personally as well as professionally to ensure the anxiety levels of my entire team are managed. But the truth is, I've always said we can move on a dime. Large agencies, government structures, they're still trying to decide if they want to come back to work or not. We have been back to work since 1 week after we closed our office. Now, that doesn't mean we were physically back to work. We moved in the way we had to move. And National Accessibility Week was our opportunity to provide 37 events. And I was not giving that up just because we had to shift to a digital approach. Some things had to be canceled, other things were added on. We brought in some really great partners from New Brunswick and any province that wanted to participate with us. But it ultimately ended up that we were the only province that went forward with the National Accessibility Week program. The agility of this agency when it comes to shifting and dealing with things like taking 37 events and moving them online in a matter of weeks and making it work and getting the word out and identifying all of the challenges that COVID brings. In addition to National Accessibility Week, we moved all our programming online in a matter of weeks. We reestablished a program called Reach Up, which I'll talk about another time. But to be honest with you, National Accessibility Week was our stand. It was our way of saying the Accessible Canada Act just passed, and we are not missing the opportunity to put a huge light on that, because as I expected with COVID and all the other issues that are flying around and all super legitimate, we knew we wouldn't have a voice necessarily to be heard. And it was so essential to me to make sure that we're still talking about the ACA, we're still talking about compliance, and we're using National Accessibility Week as the primary tool to do just that. The idea of being able to partner with a group of young people who are committed to understanding and utilizing art as a method of communication and messaging and even mind shifting is so powerful to me. And the idea that there's a group out there like YAC who have all of these diverse, interesting young people working together to create perspective from all viewpoints. I mean, how could we not want to partner with them? It's too perfect. And of course, as an agency who is committed to providing the disability arts community as a whole a real voice through our Blue Nose Ability Arts and Film Festival, it's a natural. And for us, working with YAC is like working with ourselves. It's the symbiotic ability to bring in the right people, right job. And that's certainly what YAC brought to our table. Everyone will have had, has presently, or is going to have a disability. So truthfully, the idea of stigmatizing anyone for any reason around disability or difference just completely blows my mind, because essentially we're stigmatizing ourselves, and that makes no sense.
The Accessible Canada Act is essentially a law or a commitment that the Government of Canada enacted to hold all any federal government employee or anybody that wants to do work with the federal government to like a standard.
And how did COVID-19 affect your hosting the event this year?
Well, we shut our office down on March 18th because of COVID. It was the day that the state of emergency was put in place for the province of Nova Scotia. It was kind of a weird kind of feeling in here, but we shut down, packed everything up, and headed home for we didn't know how long. And we immediately pivoted in all of our programming. So like the first week we spent making sure that everything for reachAbility as our own programming could be doable online. And then we immediately started figuring out how to switch NAAW to being online.
So there wasn't a moment when you folks thought that you weren't going to do NAAW?
No, we never once considered not doing it. We're a small organization which continues to grow, but we really have a lot of heart and we have a lot of capacity. So I don't think there's really anything that we back down from, sometimes even when we probably should. Although it was a lot of work, I think we needed something to focus on that was for a greater good. And we never want to disappoint on a grant or a commitment that we've made. So we really pushed through. But I don't think for a second that we even considered not doing it. I've been focused on NAAW since last year's NAAW, and so really quickly we had a lot of national partners from across the country reach out to us and want to get involved, and it was kind of fuel to our fire to find out that nobody else was going to be doing anything, and that like the federal government decided to use our NAAW for their NAAW. Essentially, we were the main ones. So, I mean, we had the Attorney General's office tune in for National Accessibility Week. We had folks from as far as Nanaimo and Nunavut tune in. So it was kind of really cool to know, okay, this doesn't have to be Nova Scotia specific or even Atlantic Canada specific. We're going to be able to talk about things and get conversations going across the country. So, how are we going to do this? We're going full force, Kelsey. Kelsey and I just kind of we went rogue, and it was a little bit crazy, but we did it, and we slept a lot afterwards.
Jess said we slept for a bit. I probably cried more than I slept, because I was just like so like, wow, we did that crazy big thing, and that was huge. But also like, wow, the world kind of sucks a little bit. My name is Kelsey Mcdonald. I am the social media and communications person here at reachAbility now, but that wasn't always my role. I'm like the catch-all person. So it's usually like, if you have an idea, people pitch those ideas to me, and if I can make them happen, then I do. So that comes about in graphic design, that comes about in like logistics and event planning, that comes about in grant writing. So yeah, I like to think of myself as like a really good second on a project. So I was working kind of like Jess's assistant before COVID happened. One of the cool things about reachAbility is that when you get hired, you're sort of like given a mentor, because reachAbility as a concept can be really overwhelming because we do so many different things. It can be hard to know like what isn't something that reachAbility does. Like, do we do that? Is a question we ask ourselves a lot. And if the answer is no, then the second question is usually, can we do that? And then we end up doing it. So you kind of do really need somebody to take you under their wing. And so Jess was that person for me. So I was working pretty much like, I lived in Jess's office. We shared an office for a while too. And I just basically did whatever she told me to do, which was great because she's involved in everything. So in a way, then I was involved with everything. And then that was kind of cool that I knew a lot of stuff. And so I had a really quick onboarding. And then like, I basically just chased Jess around. It's Jess, then me quickly after. Like, that was the great thing about NAAW, is that like we had something that was so important to us to focus on that we were like I didn't even really focus on what was happening outside of NAAW until after NAAW was done. Right. So I really didn't process like a lot of what was going on outside of my house, because I was so like, every single day it was like, NAAW. I really like to bring people joy. Like that's like my whole, if you were to like boil me down to like a simple explanation of why I exist as a person, it would be like, I exist to like make people laugh and like to make people smile. And so for me, doing NAAW was sort of about giving people hope in a time that felt like there wasn't anything worth hoping for. It was also, you know, I think if you get to interview Mara, you're gonna get some really interesting stuff in terms of what we were hearing about from clients.
Just like everybody else in our community, everyone else in Canada, in the world, people were feeling like their plans were getting canceled, things were getting shut down, they were stuck. But I also work with and support a client base that were experiencing a tremendous amount of heightened mental health challenges, heightened risk around food insecurity, people feeling very disconnected from the routines that were maybe starting to make them feel better. So people who had been coming to programming and getting some momentum and then all of a sudden are sent back home were often feeling desperate about that. My name is Mara Toombs, and I am the pre-employment support navigator and the social worker at reachAbility. Kelsey worked so hard. Like, I don't know, I guess I feel like one thing about this whole week that was really amazing was some people on our team had capacity to do things that were outrageous. Like, in a very short time, Kelsey and Jess figured out the whole logistical plan for how to make this happen in a way that frankly blew all of our minds and was very amazing. So I think there's something there about, it's not just like, ooh, if everyone tried really hard, they could pull this off. We were well positioned as a team to have some people who had really specific talents that came together in a really lucky way too.
I learned today that she was doing all of the technical stuff with Big Marker.
Yeah, like.
And it blew my mind.
Day and night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
It is.
There's no way that you can be around somebody do that and not catch some positivity up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the caring and detail-oriented nature of people who also are very talented, that came together in a kind of perfect storm to make it happen in basically a month, in terms of us knowing we were really doing all the things we were doing and then getting them done.
Because I was in charge of all of the tech stuff. Like, I was the one in charge of like, yeah, you're telling me. I was in charge of like Big Marker. That was me. I was in charge of like doing all of the testing out equipment with people. It was nuts. That's not what I do.
You don't have training for that.
No, I do not. Whew. But yeah, I was in charge of all of the logistics, like tech-wise stuff, and that
How did
was.
that happen?
It's all about capacity. Like, it really is here. Like, if you have the capacity to learn and do something, then it's yours. And if you have the agency to say like, I want to do that, then we'll find a place for like you to do that. So that was really challenging to like do all that stuff. I remember like during Rob Catalano's, his audio just didn't work and I couldn't figure out why. One of the times we did it, someone's camera was like turned. and like, I'm usually the person that's pretty worried most of the time. And I had to be the cool, calm person, which was kind of a different hat for me to wear. So like the amount of times I like, once everything was working and I was laying on the floor, like going, ooh, after I got everybody online, their audios was working and we were streaming to YouTube or Facebook. Once I got to the point where I was done, it was just like a lot of me laying on the floor in the hallway going like, I did it. And Rory being like, good job. NAAW was huge. Like, it was big. We were the only people that did it. Everybody else resigned and said like, due to the pandemic, you know, we're gonna postpone our events. And that just didn't sit right with us. We were like, this is the one week where we celebrate accessibility and we celebrate diversity in the disability community. Like, we're not gonna just like, we'll do it next year. They don't need a week, whatever. We'll you know, we'll make some Twitter posts and that'll be good enough. we were like, no, absolutely not. This this more than ever is important to talk about disability in the like environment of a global pandemic. And then it was like, you know, well, who's gonna be there? That was like, I remember thinking like, yeah, it's probably gonna be like 30 people. You know, like 30 people will tune into a Zoom. I can handle that. I can manage that. Then it was 500 people, because once people started hearing what we were doing, once we started getting the guest speakers that we cultivated, then it was like, wow, this is going to be cool. We started working with YAC, and then it was like, whoa, this is getting cooler and cooler and cooler. But also, do I have the capacity to do all this?
You know, working with YAC and getting youth involved was a huge thing for us, because, you know, the youth are the, you know, to be cliche, youth are the future. We're really happy to have the ACA. I think the tagline is nothing about us without us. So essentially it's like making sure that it's very human-centered, universal design, that anything that the government does takes into consideration everybody, no matter their ability, their race, their culture, their background, their gender identity, anything. Everything is all-inclusive.
I'm pretty sure I remember Ryan, the founder of YAC, saying something like that in passing. Let's take a trip over to the bridge in downtown Halifax, where Youth Art Connection operates out of.
You gon' make me forget all about Sierra. You gon' make me forget all about Sierra. You gon' make me forget all about Sierra. You gon' make me forget all about Sierra.
The reason we've been focused on injustice from the beginning is because we started off the whole organization with a youth engagement lens. And really what that means is, nothing for us without us. I'm Ryan Veltmeyer. I am a musician and a youth worker by trade. And 10 years ago, I founded Youth Art Connection, YAC, to bring those two things together, to support youth, to grow, to develop, build careers, make change, become leaders, all through the arts. Yeah, well, it's a registered charity. We run programs and activities, education and development activities, but also like festivals, art events, basically providing opportunities for like younger youth, like under 19, musicians and that kind of thing, to be able to like practice their craft and cut their teeth and develop. Or on the other hand, we always say make art, make money, make change. So everybody's making art. Some people are focused also on making money and growing careers. And then there's a whole change thing, because lots of artists also kind of really kind of like I did, wanted to make a difference somehow in the world. So it's finding like, how can you use your creative voice, your creative expression to also have social impact? But it was reachAbility reaching out, because they knew we had this focus and relationships with young artists and creatives. And I think reachAbility was really wanting to engage youth and do it in a creative way, and they saw us as a potential partner in that. And at the beginning, honestly, I just thought I was going to help refer some talent to them and some artists, and just be like, here you go, like, you should hire these people. But then it was cool, because then it involved, but they wanted to keep the relationship going. So then we stayed more involved in that, and recruited some young artists well, first I guess to attend the NAAW conference in person. Then that got COVIDed, but then it came back because they adapted really fast and went digital. So then we were still able to help hire and support like a group of young videographers and content creators to attend virtually and to do this whole project together. But yeah, that's how it started. I think it was reachAbility reaching out, and it seems like they really wanted to maintain the relationship, which it's really cool as an organization to feel that intention to want to like continue collaborating, to value relationships. It doesn't always feel like that, right, with organizations. Yeah, well, I mean, we did what we do well, is like we contacted artists at various stages in their careers, found out if they were interested in participating in this, and then brought that team together to create content, to be able to attend the virtual conference and create, how many did we create? 20 or 30 videos reacting to all the different activities and events happening at the online conference. And I think hopefully what we really did was we brought a younger voice and a different voice and a diverse voice to this conference. So we heard from a big range of people, and especially younger people and creative people, what it was like, what it felt like, what their reactions were to a professional conference that otherwise often I think might be attended by professionals in the field and adults and older folks who get into that business mindset. But might forget, some of the most important users is the youth mindset. And hopefully that content, long term, can be used to help reachability really reach young voices, and so that they continue to grow and engage their own capacity to have a big network of young people who they can work with to achieve their goals.
When I asked reachability what they wanted me to do for NAAW videos, they said, whatever you want to give us. I was kind of shaken at the idea of that. But as I got further into making a relationship with the people at reachability through working alongside of them, I realized that they truly only wanted to take something I wanted to make. I was one of 4 artists that helped make over 2 hours of content for NAAW 2020. Hello there, my name's Mabel, and I'm one of the 4 artists working with Youth Art Connection to drive conversation and create coverage for the National Accessibility Week's digital conference.
What's up everybody, my name is Harmony Adesola, and I just came back from an online workshop with the Reachability Association.
My name is Mariah Pelly-Smith, and I'm going to be doing a reaction video to the Reachability video on resilience that I watched on June 4th.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I just wanted to tell you guys about a really exciting opportunity I got this week.
School is taking a lot of my time right now. I've been working on a couple of my own projects. For the past month, I've been shooting a music video. I'm like a freelance filmmaker, a rapper, a student, whole package. So my man Ryan he always just hits me up, and because he knows that I wouldn't say no. He contacted me and says, would you like to do this thing? And then I was a bit skeptical because I was working at Walmart at the time, and I was scared it would really clash with my work schedule because they're really stupid strict there. This is something that will benefit myself as well, learning more about accessibility and all that, and I thought about it and I decided to give it a try. I was really, I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I think I was experiencing depression. So I needed money, and everywhere was closed except food stores and all that, so I just decided to apply to Walmart because I needed a job desperate. And I worked there. It wasn't nice, no offense to Walmart, but it's just not my thing. I like to create, and I can't really create there. So I was really sad in the sense that I can't really do anything because I'm so used to do this and this, and I'm always a busy person working on this, helping somebody else with that. And for 2 months, I wasn't really doing anything. I was kind of just in my bed at home all day. Wasn't allowed to see friends, and stuff like that. So honestly, I loved it. I really did. It really made me think more about people with disabilities and how we, people that are able-bodied people, kind of overlook that and kind of just don't care that much. Hate to admit it, I was one of those people who kind of overlooked people with disabilities and don't give them as much attention, as much support. So it really made me think about that, and really made me tell people about. I told my parents about it. I told how universities are trying to be more accessible. I loved it. I love creating anything. And I love being in front of a camera, as you can tell. I love that, and I really love sharing my point of view. It also gives me joy that I learned something out of it. I'm not only giving something, I'm also taking something in. I'm learning free information that people need to know. People just need to really come to such events and conferences and learn more, because it benefits yourself, and you can share the information to other people, just like I did. My creative juices were dead. I wasn't really doing anything. I was doing some sad vibes type.
What was it like to get that?
It kept me going. I felt like I had a purpose again. I felt myself again. And after I was done with the videos, I was even energized and inspired to work on one of mine. I started creating more vlogs for myself, like what I used to do. I started documenting my quarantine life, wake up in the morning, go for a jog, sleep, the end. Peace.
So my name is Mabel Smith. I'm a Kundalini yoga practitioner, Reiki teacher, poet. I do things. So I'm an entrepreneur, so full-time doing all of the things. I've been visiting Hub for prior to all the COVID thing, probably for like a year and a bit, and I built a good relationship with Ryan, and I was doing some graphic design work for YAC as an organization. Like I was doing work for them at the time. He's like, would you want to do some extra work for this event? And I just said, yeah, sure. It was a little bit of like a challenge just because I was doing 8 jillion things at the same time. So it was interesting because like I make like videos for my own YouTube channel and do all the things. So it was really fun to like watch something, talk about it, put my branding in, put their branding in, edits, be okay with however it comes through, because you're just, in some sense, judging how that person is doing the thing, but doing it from a constructive place and being honest. And so it was fun to like work in that place.
And so you were busy when
yes, I was real busy. What's one of my pet peeves when people like say like I'm gonna do this thing, the energy's really high, I'm like, and then just like, see you later. Like, they just disappeared to this, and you're like, that's like, you're not, you have to like, in order to build trust with yourself and with the people around your community, like you need to follow through with your word. It doesn't really, like the hardness, unless you're like mentally being harmed or physically being harmed, then it's just like, it's just the way to grow and push through the thing. And it's like your mind can figure out a way to get through it and find a piece that you can benefit from.
My name is Megan Reed. So I am a freelance videographer and video editor. I'm also a musician. I am a performing artist, also going by the name of Megan Reed. I do pop R&B, and recently I started to front a metal band. So I'm literally all over the place.
Yeah, you got that range.
Yeah, I am also a model with Solely Model Productions in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'm a mom. Throw that in there because I love my baby.
Absolutely.
I heard about National Accessibility Week through Ryan Veltmeier of Youth Art Connection. I had been taking advantage of these opportunities through the Hub program, the weekly artist meetup, and one day he sent me an email and was like, we are looking for content creators for this event. By that point I had already been laid off my job, and I'd been on CERB, and I had been just trying to figure out what to do, because I know how my brain works when I'm in a period of chaos, and I know what happens when I'm not following some sort of schedule, and it was really hard to follow a schedule. I started doing a weekly Instagram live chat. Shortly before National Accessibility Week, I actually lost that schedule. I had started really spiraling down into the effects of lockdown. I couldn't, go for a walk without feeling like something's gonna happen. Ryan was like, hey, here's this opportunity for National Accessibility Week. And for me, opportunity is like a big, bright, shining light, because it's something to focus on. Yeah, it was a really huge turning point because it really set up everything else that has happened through reachAbility since then. The fact that I had the opportunity to learn so much more, and I was able to present this to other people who otherwise wouldn't have heard of National Accessibility Week. It was really nice.
If COVID had canceled that and there was no National Accessibility Week 2020, would your life be different now?
Yeah. Yeah, if that hadn't happened, I'm still recovering from where my brain went during COVID. Like, it's really hard. That was a really big opportunity for me to like get out and feel like I was doing things again.
I almost like get teary thinking about it. It was such a traumatic time, I think, for so many of us. That was really such a relief that they were able to go so fast and actually do something. So then that's what I always think about. I think it was awesome that they went fast. I think it's really important because of what you gain when you learn just by doing. I mean, and people get hurt along the way even when you do take a ton of care, right? So if you're too conservative and too careful all the time, basically nothing gets done. I had a discussion with a Black leader in the community, and she was saying what she was noticing, for example, in June, when we had the big Black Lives Matter movement really beginning and everyone really paying attention, is that sometimes, the groups of white people and organizers will be so concerned about making sure everything is perfect, everything is 100% Black-led, and no one's doing anything wrong, that nothing happens. An opportunity will come up, and because of concerns about being careful and doing it in the right way, in fact, nothing happens. So she's saying yeah, you don't want to do stuff in the wrong way. There's a way to do anti-Black racism work, and there's a way to really mess it up. But also doing nothing is pretty bad too, right? So I think there's a big risk of inaction that requires us to actually try to move fast as we can. But I really took that to heart when she told me that, and she said, you get it. There's obviously a bad way to do this work sometimes, and you can't harm people, but also doing nothing is really not okay either. So I always think about her, and so to me that's what I bring to my organization, but also other organizations. It's you have to try, you have to take some risks sometime, I think.
How bad is it to not do anything at all? Right? It's not good.
It's the worst option. I understand people wanting to say there have been things we have canceled this year. We had a ton of in-person arts festival engagement around the Blue Nose Ability Arts and Film Festival that we couldn't do because we felt what was central to those events was being in a room together, and it didn't feel transferable. There were things that were transferable, there's things we're still doing. We were able to do a drive-in concert that felt worthwhile, but for me it feels like the conversations we were having at NAAW, we could have valuable conversations using the web, and we could have valuable conversations using these panel software options like Big Marker, and we could get questions from the audience, and all that engagement could in fact just meet a bigger audience. So it felt on the one hand, if we had canceled, we would have lost trust, but on the other hand, in fact, we would have just missed an opportunity to do something even bigger. That's how we saw it. For me, a reason why I feel I have a lot of positivity to draw from is that we have very inspiring interactions with people all the time here. I get to see people come here feeling very stuck, go through a process, have an experience, volunteer at an event, and come out feeling a lot more sure of themselves, a lot more connected to other people, a lot more clear about their direction. And that is really, truly the most amazing thing. So if we get to engage with people doing that, then there's a lot of hope for us. We feel there's a lot of meaning to what we do. And this year, through COVID, we were able to be really responsive, connect with a lot of people, and do things immediately to help. And for all of us, that was hugely therapeutic. You were talking about the NAAW youth feeling stuck and overwhelmed, and then coming in and the youth that we worked with on this project getting to feel it was positive for them. It was positive for us. We needed a place to put our energy. And we've really been able to pivot in such a way that we've been able to put our energy where it's useful this year. This is a big deal to us. We put a lot of energy into it. And I think that level of commitment is easier to find in small organizations that have a lot of responsibility in their community. So we really care about the outcomes locally.
Jess told me it wasn't even a question to cancel.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with Kelsey, not even on the radar.
Right.
Which, I like that you're being so candid in your questions, because it allows me to be a little bit more candid when I ask, what the heck is going on here? Because it was wild that you folks went ahead and did this conference digitally and made the huge shift.
Yeah.
It's a big, wild thing, and every time I ask about it, someone's like, yeah, of course I did. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. There is something about this particular, environment, Tova's leadership, our team, that there's some kind of quality of why'd you climb that mountain? Well, it was there. There's some, we have to do something with our energy. And we're also sort of shocked by how many awesome things aren't happening all the time. We have lots of ideas and we're well, somebody must be doing it. And then we look around and we're oh, someone isn't doing that thing. That's awesome. We should definitely do that. And if anything, the challenge is to rein it in at any given time and make sure we're not splitting our energy in too many directions, because we just have so many people that have a ton of energy.
Right.
and are really driven and lots of us are really motivated by different issues. So we could do kind of everything, and then we realize, okay, there's only like 14 of us.
So you don't have the capacity.
Yeah, we have to like slow down at a certain point and focus, but we're often doing things that we're like halfway through it when I'm like, why are we doing that? And then I found out I'm like so inspired by what we're doing, but we're already way down the rabbit hole because someone's been just driving it, making it happen.
Right.
One thing we've seen this year that's been really exciting for us as a kind of COVID adaptation that we didn't expect to be positive were the people who can't make it to the workshop can do the workshop from home. The people who couldn't make it to a NAAW event if we had held it at the library would watch the live stream. And then the person who watches the live stream gets in touch with us and says like, oh, I want to come and do a program with you because I've had this experience that makes me feel like I trust you, like there's some opportunity for me in the world. And that's like the thing that gives me chills, is the chance to reach the people who are really truly isolated, but who have the capacity, once they connect with other people, to gain a lot of capacity from workshops and training and opportunities. I think the way we look at it is that if we don't adapt, if we don't do a thing, way more is falling through the cracks. So on the one hand, there's a risk to doing an event that you had planned to do in person all of a sudden as a web workshop. But there's a much greater risk to National Accessibility Week going by in a year when people facing accessibility barriers are having the worst year ever. And then you just say, well, we're going to cancel the workshops where we talk about how we're going to tackle these issues. Like this year, there were so many new things coming up that needed to be discussed. To cancel that would feel like an incredible problem in terms of serving the community to us. So we'd rather find a way to do it. And if it's not perfect, well, we learned a ton from it and definitely way more benefit than any errors that we're going to make probably.
We had not built, like we were like patting ourselves on the back. Like we are so prepared. We did such a good job. Nothing is gonna, like we're not even, everything's organized and ready to go. There is absolutely nothing that could happen that would change our plans. And then it was like, COVID's here. And we were like, what? Oh no, we did not plan for a pandemic. We had all kinds of other plans and pandemic wasn't one of them. There's a lot of pacing at home in the basement, like talking to my husband, like, and then this happened. What's that about? You know? But yeah, you were asking Jess questions about like whether or not there was the feeling of like, are we gonna do this or not? And like, it's true, like that wasn't a thing. Like I remember being in the office. I remember asking like 2 weeks before the state of emergency. I remember asking, hey, this virus thing seems like it's gonna be a big deal. Should we have like a plan B? And I remember people in the office being like, no, that's not gonna happen. We're gonna be fine. And I was like, okay. Now I'm paranoid. People know me to be paranoid. Like I often am like worst case scenario. Yeah. And that's why I'm a good event planner, because I'm like thinking about all the things that are gonna go wrong so that I can like, fix them before they happen. Some people might say that's unhealthy, but I just roll with it.
What needs to happen, and there's always a way to make it happen, no matter what the obstacles are. And that's kind of like what Reach is, right? I mean, we work with people facing barriers, moving forward in many different avenues for many different things, and we don't let those barriers get in the way. We find a way to work around it, we find a way to push through it. It's just this, setting up an event like that is just the same thing. There were obstacles, there were barriers, and we just were able to, think outside the box and really push and figure out how can we make this happen and how can we make it touch the most people. My name is Carrie Marshall and I am the job developer here at reachAbility. Not to say that anybody couldn't fit in here, but there's definitely, you need to be able to be fluid, you need to be able to have that flexibility and movement and enjoy being able to do a lot of different things all at once. And I think the other piece of that is also the bucket filling. Like there's constantly things that are happening that show us that what we're doing is having an impact and making a difference in people's lives. And because we have the connection with that and because we feel that, it gives us that drive to be able to move through the things that we're moving through, even if it does seem like a challenge to us personally, and it is a conflict for us to maybe shift gears or change our direction or thinking on a dime like that. I think the end result for us has all been so positive that it's another piece that moves us forward. The hard work is hard, but the payback is so great.
It's greater than the work.
It's so much greater. And just being able to, the clients themselves, take NAAW out of the picture, because it's hard to see the impact that we have on that, although we know that there is a huge impact. Working with clients every day, you see people transform, you see confidence, you see the ability to advocate for oneself. All of that, just you can see the change in just a couple of weeks. And so being a part of that, it's a driving force. I wish that more people or more organizations had that drive to just really push forward and not to be so hung up on we can't do this or this isn't going to work, because until you break through that and actually get the opportunity to do those things and feel it, it's just that constant do I work this hard or do I not? Do I push this hard or don't I? But in the end, it's every little piece makes so much difference in people's lives, and sometimes we don't understand that just a little bit of positivity or a little bit of change can be so impactful for people. Well, I'm a little bit different than everybody else, because I actually started about a week before NAAW was going live. And so I was pulled into this whirlwind of, we need to do this and we need to do it now. And I was just I can't even believe that this is possible, that this is going to happen. We just all really love doing what we do, so it makes it a lot easier just to be able to run and grab it.
When I first started the job, I actually started here as a client just prior to starting. So it was very overwhelming and very uplifting when Tova called me to see if I wanted to become employed after taking the programs here. My name is Angela Morash, but I go by Angie. I am the Success 40 facilitator for the employment programs. The environment here is, as you said, very uplifting and very supportive. The lack of confidence I had in myself of speaking in front of large groups or even in a team meeting at my old workplace, I would stumble over my words. I would be very uncomfortable speaking. But because of Tova's encouragement, as well as the facilitators I took program with, I just overcame that fear, and I've been here for 4 years now. So yeah, reachAbility has been a major part in bringing up that confidence and working together. So it's been lovely. I worked for a very large industry, private-run company, over 300 staff in our office, and unfortunately I experienced bullying in the workplace, and it ended up leading me to have to take 2 different times health-related leave for stress. So I took the time off, but the second time when I went to the doctor, we decided that it was a toxic environment for me. So I left. Luckily, I have a great partner who was willing to support me in that decision. And I built my resiliency and took some personal training and really got to know myself and decided what I wanted in an employer. And I had no idea what reachAbility was. I had never heard of them at that point. So I looked into it. I showed up on Tuesday morning, and it's 4 years later. So it's wonderful. Oh, there's so much I want to say. First of all, just because we might have a barrier to employment or a disability doesn't mean that we can't do a job well. And I feel like some of the biggest stigma is that, oh my gosh, this person just told me they're disabled, or they have anxiety, or they have mental health issues, and what's that going to look like for me? What they don't understand is that those people, and like myself, because I have anxiety and depression and seasonal depression, it's knowing that an employer has gone over and above to make an accommodation for you makes me want to work that much harder, and as well as my clients. So I help them get back to work, and I see them last so much longer than some of the people they employ that kind of just take it as a job to get to somewhere else, right? And I think that's what employers really have to look at is don't look at the disability, but look at the person and what you're getting from them. Just to be accommodating and support people in our community, right, that need that chance. It's so important. So, and if Tova hadn't have done it, then goodness knows where I'd be, right? So if she would have just looked at my barriers, I wouldn't be here, but here I am.
I think it was bizarre, but also inspiring. And I think just there's a lot of passion.
But also like really actually caring and like being here because of passion, because of love, because of kind of like real reasons, real support, real interest in people, and a real passion.
First of all, we always have hard measures that we're looking at for anything. Like we want to make sure that we get a certain number of clients through programs and that they complete programs and that they have the opportunity to either get a job or whatever other measurables are sort of those solid measures. But what I see as a social worker is that what really matters is like a year, 2 years later, whether that person has retained that job, whether that progress that they made while they were with us has been able to stick. And what we see is that what makes that stick in a measurable way is community connection, confidence, feeling of like worthiness, someone to call when you get freaked out and things start going awry in the third, fourth month of a job. So not being so limited in our engagement with people gives them better long-term outcomes that we can measure. Like they're still employed 2 years later and they call us and say thank you. I really care, and when I look around at other agencies in the community, I see so much inspiring work being done this year. I feel like a lot of people actually have gotten a gust of re-inspiration in terms of the work that they're doing in nonprofit, and I feel that acutely here. We were inspired before, but this year we've really felt like, okay, we have to show up for our clients in new ways, and we have to adapt. And when we do, it's really beautiful. It's just very special.
All right. So I want to thank everybody who is part of our virtual audience who's taken time out of their Sunday to attend the opening of the NAAW Festival. So today, what we're going to do is actually we have a chance to sit down with the filmmaker who just produced a film that you just watched called Beyond Measurables. And this filmmaker's name is Mabel Wheeler. So how are you doing, Mabel, first off, to start us?
Oh, I'm doing well, Ryan. Thank you. It's great to be here for the opening of NAAW.
Yes, definitely. So to get us started, the first question I had for you was just for people who are watching who may be unfamiliar with who you are and your background in film, if you could give us a little introduction of who you are and maybe how you first got introduced to NAAW.
Yeah, sure. So as we've heard, I'm Mabel, and I started doing technical digital artist kind of nonprofit stuff in Fredericton, New Brunswick when I was younger, just seeing a lot of folks wanting to make art but just not having the tools that they needed to. So that could be, tools for doing a live concert or tools for making a music video or for making a PR package, that kind of thing. And so I started making films when I was quite young. And yeah, I moved to Cape Breton like 3 years ago, and with a small amount of nonprofit experience, I helped start a a youth center in North Sydney, and it was a massive undertaking. It was an unbelievable 3 years of my life. But when COVID came, much like a lot of other people, everything kind of came crashing down. And luckily, it's running now. It's great. But we at the time were kind of sitting, and I got this call from somebody I met through the youth center, Ryan Veltmeyer of YAC, and he said, I have this opportunity for you. And it was really a wonderful way to, get off the couch unstuck. And I was asked to create coverage for the previous year's NAAW. That's how I was introduced to NAAW.
Nice. And can you walk us through a little bit about what your editing process was when putting this film together?
Sure, yeah. So, something that we don't think of a lot of the time is just how just what it takes to create a film. And so there's a lot of moving pieces, and in a lot of films, what ends up being on screen isn't, the exact right thing or the perfect explanation of whatever we're trying to get across. We had a small team that had a small amount of funding for a documentary, and there was a little bit of tension as I was coming onto it, because people were wondering, how are we going to create something meaningful out of this opportunity? And Reach really didn't want to do something that wasn't valuable. They didn't want to just fulfill a grant just to kind of get it done and then shoo it out of the way. So, I got invested, and I took the project on, and I just tried my best to make something that was valuable and talked about something that we really cared about. And I realized that there was a little bit more of a story in the individual, in the people who are doing the nonprofit work here, and kind of what it takes, how much heart there is. And I think when you see people caring that much about something, it's hard not to get invested in it. So it really kind of added an emotional side of NAAW for me that made me become more interested in it.
And can you tell us a little bit about how your creative process came together to make the final project?
Sure, yeah. So we had interviews with everybody, and I had an idea of what was going to happen, but it's you're never really sure until you throw it all in a timeline and just start cutting. But yeah, it's a lot of meetings with people who contract these films, so they have a lot of things that they're really looking for. And also, these people aren't used to being, the center of attention. So that's a very vulnerable thing. This is a very vulnerable story that I've had them tell. And because of that, there was a lot of back and forth, making sure that people are comfortable. And so that's how the final order is decided. It's less me and more team and thinking about how everybody else is feeling.
All right. And can you tell us what it was like when you were interviewing the different people who work at reachAbility? Was there any underlining themes that you noticed during the interviews?
Yeah, actually, that was a beautiful experience. I'm glad you're asking me about that. I was doing really grassroots work, and I was doing it with not enough money when we were in North Sydney. And there, we saw the good, the bad, and the really, really ugly. And it gave me so much respect and heart for folks who work nonprofit. So I didn't know if they were going to feel the same as me because I had such a different experience. But it doesn't matter. It didn't matter that they're in offices and cubicles or doing different work than I was doing. Reach really feels like an organization that's on the ground, and I think that's people mentioned it a few times in the film. It's because they're held liable by their community. They have a lot of responsibility within their community as a local organization, and so just immediately I started to see that people were really vulnerable. Instantly, they instantly are talking about how much they care about this specific thing. because of the amount of work and drive that it requires to do this work. So you have to care. Like, you can't put an event like this on without really caring. And so I thought that was, and it showed up consistently, right? And also all of the interview subjects were willing to be vulnerable with me. So that's another different thing, right? Like, a lot of people won't trust you when they first meet you, which is fair. But every different interviewer, every different interviewee was very kind of just excited to talk about it. And I think that comes from a desire for creating a better climate for folks that live with disability.
That's nice. Were there any discoveries that you made when making this film, either as an artist or a longtime friend of reachAbility?
Yeah, I had a working professional relationship with reachAbility at the time. They were offering me some much needed financial security for a lot of my, for my family, right? But it wasn't until then that I started to have like an emotional attachment to the people in the office, and just started seeing everybody. And then all of a sudden, everyone recognizes me when I come in, and like, oh, that's an interesting thing. I guess I've been here a few times. And then, you're just kind of doing a video job, and you'd really like to make a good film that has some meaning. But by the end of it, like, I was really personally invested with everything that everyone had done for this event. And not just that, but I've been an advocate my entire life for queer rights, for disability, mental health specifically. I did a lot of work with mental health awareness, and then also just like trying to bring accessibility to the arts as much as possible. So I just really became invested, and I also learned a lot about the disability kind of conversation that's happening right now, where we are, kind of got a bit more realistic of a view of the landscape, and why things like the new legislature are mandatory right now in moving forward, and where we need to go, where there's problems. So yeah, all of that kind of coming to the surface, and just some care, like real passion, like they said at the end. It just there's a lot of care.
Yes, definitely. From watching the film, that was the consensus that I got from it as well. What were some of the biggest learning experiences that you had throughout the process?
Learning experiences. Well, I mean, the budget was extremely low, and it's interesting because nobody asked me to make something that was that difficult to make. That was my decision. It could have been just any other kind of opening, but I really poured a lot of time and effort into it. So we bought a couple $15 lav mics from Amazon, and I was like resoldering them throughout the entire shoot. Like, it was we are using kind of consumer grade electronics right now to try and bring ideas across to audiences in a professional format, because often things like this just don't get that backing that they need, and the story doesn't get told. So I think in terms of learning, just really learning how to adapt, how to roll with things being not as good as you want them to be, just like learning to roll with it, and also learning that you can just be okay with it. You can just put it out, and it has a lot of merits. I think because the people who are in it have a lot of merits, and so it was really great for me as a filmmaker to have such an emotional project to do, because the clips are kind of dripping,
Oh, definitely, and I can see that from the film, from the final project, as well as hearing you talk about the project, of how you had that emotional attachment to it. Well, my last question was, what is the overall messaging you're hoping that the audience would walk away from after watching this film?
Yeah, this is the big thing, I guess. There is kind of a force of progression that happens through mostly nonprofit work, but also there's government work that's really amazing. And I've met some of the biggest change makers through government, because sometimes people, they do amazing things through that system, and it's wonderful. But there's something to be said about the individual nonprofit in your area, like that specific thing, and caretaking, and like the relationships that we make with each other when we are caring for the people who are here, and the relationships that we have with them when we're trying to minimize systemic racism and create relationships for the future too. We just need to focus more on the connections, I think, and the connections that I made between Reach and between the artists that were doing NAAW, and it's just really humbling, and I think that we need to be paying a lot more attention to individual small grassroots nonprofit and charity organizations, because there's so much care and there's so much momentum. And if people individually, whether it's money or time, just approach a nonprofit in their area, there's going to be someone in that building who cares so much, and they will take whatever you give them and multiply it into your community and make big change. And that you'll see that everywhere in the world.
All right. So I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today and participate in the opening of NAAW. Thank you for being able to produce that and put together that film for us, Beyond Measurables, as is something that I feel has a wider impact on the greater community. And I feel like all eyes should be on that. Again, I wanted to thank our audience who's at home virtually, taking their Sunday to jump online with us and engage with us. So I want to thank you for that, and stay tuned as we have a conversation with the Honorable Carla Qualtrough coming up next. So again, wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to speak with you, Mabel, as I can attest to being able to work with you and learn some editing style tips and tricks from you. It's been a pleasure working with you, and it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue working on some editing with you.
All right.